Unilateral flat chest press for this one, guys. So you can see I'm holding the left side up and I'm starting my reps with the right side. I'm going to get a bunch in and then I'm going to switch it up and hit the left side as well. And then I'm going to finish off by going bilateral and hitting both sides together. Your turn to try it. Working a single arm chest press for this exercise. So we're going to start off working those presses on one side, holding a single dumbbell, and then midway through we're going to switch over and do the other side as well. Make sure your lower back is pinned against the floor and you've got a nice vertical push as far as your pressing is concerned. Your turn to try it. standing horizontal press for this exercise. So we're going to start off using the one dumbbell, making sure your elbows are tucked in nicely, and we're going to bring the dumbbell all the way to our chest. Make sure your elbows are by your rib cage, and then we're going to press horizontally. And we're going to press straight out until you've got straight arms. Good amount of anterior shoulders in this particular exercise, and then as you're pushing out, you really have to use your core to maintain your position. Try and keep your knees slightly bent to protect your back, and stay nice and vertical throughout this exercise. Your turn to try it. Neutral to anterior rotation on this seated shoulder press for this exercise. So as the shoulder press comes down, we go into that neutral position, and then it's a thrust straight up with a rotating hand as you get to the top of it. Let's work one side, keeping a nice neutral spine, and then we're going to switch it up and do the other arm as well. Your turn to try it. single arm fly for this exercise. So lying on the bench with your lower back pinned right up against it, we're going to go into that fly motion on a single side, keeping your arms soft straight and just making sure you've got adequate control over your movement. Nice and slow on the negative as well. Your turn to try this one. Unilateral skull crushers for this exercise. So very important to start off with that neutral hand position, just drawing a pair of parallel lines with your arms, and then we're going to hit the skull crushers on one side, making sure you're minimizing any movement in your elbow, and then we're going to hit the other side as well. Then we're going to finish off by doing a bilateral set, so doing both sides at the same time. Your turn to try it. seated overhead triceps extension for this exercise. So very important to keep your elbow nice and stationary throughout this one, and just making sure we're getting the full extent of that triceps extension. And then just bringing your hand to the back of your head and going from there again. Let's hit one side and then switch it up and hit the other side as well. Your turn to try it. This one's a nice difficult variation of a lateral delts raise. So you can see my left side is just holding that T position isometric, and then I'm doing my reps with my right. What you got to be really careful with this one is make sure that your wrists don't snap forward. You've got to try and keep them nice and tight the whole time. Make sure the movement stays nice and lateral, and you've got a slight bend in your knees in order to protect your back. Your turn to try this one. seated lateral delts raise with a single arm for this exercise. So again, exercising that core engagement to try to keep the torso nice and straight, keep neutral spine. And then it's a lateral motion with a soft straight arm. So you want to lift just above shoulder height and then return it with a nice slow negative. Let's work one side and then hit the other side straight after. Your turn to try it. weighted side bend from a side plank position for this exercise. So you can see I've got my top foot in front of my bottom foot, which I like to use for stability, but if you wanted to do a straight stack with your legs, that's okay as well. Just very important to try and maintain a straight line from your ankle all the way to your shoulder. And we're just dropping down into that side bend, getting your hip to the ground or close to the ground, and then lifting back up into that side plank. We're going to do both sides. Your turn to try it. 2-in-1 exercise for this one, guys. So we're going to start off with a single arm skull crusher, and once you get to the top of that, once you get to that vertical line with your arm, we're going to keep pushing up and go into a crunch, and then return back with your lower back nice and flat on the bench and straight back into the skull crusher for this one. Very important to minimize any movement in your elbow as you're working through, and just making sure you're pushing straight up and getting the full extent of that crunch throughout the motion. Your turn to try this one. Standing weighted side bend for this exercise with a single dumbbell. So you can see I'm starting with a nice wide stance and just making sure that my knees are straight. So I'm not going to compensate by bending my knees throughout this exercise. And then it's just a push to the side and tilting until your hands gone well past your knees if you can. And then lifting up into that straight line, just making sure that you're maintaining a neutral spine for this one. Once we finish one side, we're going to turn around and hit the other side as well. Your turn to try it. Nice difficult variation of some biceps curls. So you can see that I'm holding one side isometric in that contracted position, and I'm just working on the other side. So just the right arm doing all the repetitions. At the end of the set, I'm going to switch it up. I'm going to hold isometric with my right side and get the left to do the reps. Your turn to try this one. biceps curl with a single arm for this exercise. So just using the single dumbbell, which involves a little bit of core work, particularly in your obliques, to try and maintain a neutral spine as you do this. And then we're going from a neutral hand position into an anterior rotation so that we're really hitting the peak of the biceps with this one. We're going to do one side, and then next set we're going to do the other side. Your turn to try it. With a neutral spine, we're going to bend forward and we're going to hold up a bent over row isometric pose. So you want to make sure your elbows are tucked in and you want to pull those dumbbells in all the way to your ribs, and we want to hold it there. Now you want to make sure that you don't look down. You want to look in front of you, so you're encouraging your back to remain in the right position and to stay nice and neutral. Your turn. very difficult balance exercise for this one, you guys. So we're going to start off in a T-balance position, and with the opposite hand, we're going to start to work some rows. So this is really going to test your stabilizers, and you might end up slipping up a little bit on this one, but it doesn't matter. Just make that adjustment and just keep the set going. At the end of the set, we're going to switch it up, change hands and change legs as well, and we're going to do the other side too. Your turn to try this one. Well done for getting through your workout today, guys. Let's take a moment to stretch and cool our body back down now. Comment and let us know what you thought of today's workout, and remember to hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with all the latest workouts.